Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Cast Dice, the podcast that explores the great big wild world of tabletop gaming that exists in the world today. It has been said many times, mostly on this podcast, that we are in the middle of a gaming renaissance. There are just too many good games out there that we can spend our hobby time and our hobby dollars on. It's hard to know which way to turn next. It can lead to, I guess what the kids call, a serious case of fear of missing out. And I guess that's the purpose of this podcast, to talk about big industry events that are happening, to talk about, cool games that my guests and I have been enjoying, and, sometimes talking to the authors of the games who have been writing them. Now, one of the things I do love talking about are events. I love going to an event. I love playing an event, and I love just the notion that when you get together with people at a quote-unquote tournament, at an event, at a narrative game day, whatever it is, you are getting together with like-minded players to play and enjoy the games that we like to play. And it's something that I don't do all that much anymore, but when I did, and when I played in a lot of the bolt action events and tournaments that were happening in Victoria and in Sydney and in Canberra, you would see regular faces. It would be one of they were sort of scenes that sort of blended together at times. People would come down from the other cities to Melbourne, and we would in turn would go up to their events. But the purpose of this episode is to explore the idea that the Australian meta is not just made up of those three cities. There are actually many other capital cities in Australia, some of which are actually really far away. In fact, on a previous episode of, I believe, the LRDG2, I spoke with, people who ran events all the way over in Perth, which is, for those of you who are American listeners, for example, about as distant as the difference between the East and the West Coast. So today we're going to look at the bolt action scene in two new and interesting places. Now, just recently, a week and a half ago, we had Tasmania had I think its largest bolt action event to date, and it was a whopper. 24 players on the day. Boom. And we're going to talk to the TO of that event in about 5 seconds. But then later in this episode, we're actually going to talk to the TO of an event in Townsville that's coming up shortly. So we're going to actually talk about bolt action in two separate metas, locations, whatever you want to call it, but two new and exciting scenes as far as the Australian bolt action community is sort of, I don't want to say they're not represented, because both are represented through the Bolt Action Facebook page, the Bolt Action New Zealand Australian page, and through the Bolt Action Tasmanian page. Really well, I might add. But on the podcasting world, these events aren't often talked about. Anyway, I'm going to get off my soapbox here and introduce my first guest. Now, if you are ever on the Bolt Action Tasmanian page, or you are ever on the Bolt Action Australia New Zealand page, you will have seen the beautiful terrain this man and his family makes. He is a prolific poster, and of course he has his own Facebook page as well, which I will get him to plug in just a second. You might know him as a fuzzy giraffe. I like to know him as Acktar. Acktar, welcome to Cast Dice. How you doing, man?
Good, thanks, Brad. Yourself?
Oh, that is the dulcet tone of a giraffe if I have ever heard one.
Thanks there, Brad.
No worries, man. So cool. You are clearly in Tasmania. Now, before we get into sort of the Tasmanian scene, some of the beautiful terrain you make, and the event that you just ran, where can people find pictures of your stuff? Because you have your own page.
Yeah, we're currently posting a lot of stuff through the Democratically Elected Republic of Players.
That's right.
Which is just our sort of a pseudoism on derp to
nice,
where we post up our gaming profanity and exploits, really.
Nice. And when you say we, it's definitely you. Is it who else?
Howard Yowie is his name on the Book of Faces, but that's Acktar Giraffe's father, and Dennis Berwick, along with a few of the other key members of the Tasmanian scene, Les McCready, Ben Gaffney, Ian Griffin, just to name a few.
Nice. I was going to say, are they all last name Berwick? Because I'm sensing a trend there. No. Okay.
No, not quite.
Okay. Now let's get to the terrain. Now, I've known Dennis's work for years as part of the Bolt Action Alliance, but I've also known yours, and your dad is also involved as well. You guys are a family of terrain makers. How does that happen? Was it sort of a passion of your father's, or how did, the three of you sort of combine to make one of the most prolific terrain building dynasties in the Southern Hemisphere?
Oh, thanks for the word dynasty. I don't know about that yet. Yeah. Well, it started probably 15, 16 years ago when we were playing 40K, and we wanted a bit of terrain for it. My brother and I were getting really into it, and Dad was like, oh, yeah, we'll make you a bit of terrain. The old flower pot was turned upside down and painted, and it sort of built on and on from there, with 40K falling out of favourite 5th edition and going on to some more historical sort of things. And then we discovered the wonderful game of Bolt Action, and we haven't looked back from there.
Nice. Yeah, I was going to say, now you guys are sort of personally responsible for 12 tables of terrain or 13 tables of terrain for the event on the weekend?
We supplied 11 on the day, and the Dead Man's Corner was done by the very talented Devonish boys from down south.
Nice. Oh, that's fantastic. Now, looking at these tables, let's talk about some of the spread of the terrain, because you had a wide variety from across World War II, and it felt like beyond, but I don't think it was. Talk to us about the terrain that you set up. What were sort of the spread of venues for people to fight on, so to speak?
Well, we had some of the beautiful buildings by Viv from Knights of Dice that was purchased by one of our local guys that we tarted up a bit. We had the desert ones from the Tabula Rasa range there set up with the range, and people may have seen Tristan's LRDG placed on that.
There were lots of pictures of that, yep.
Yes, there were lots of pictures of that. That was because it was very, very pretty. It ended up taking up Best Painted too.
Yeah, I was going to say, so before, spoilers, before we get into the results, Tristan did win Best Painted, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Very, very beautiful army, if anyone gets a chance to see that in the flesh.
It is gorgeous, yeah.
And graphic.
Yes, no, because he came down. So Tristan is, of course, one of the Bacon Burgers and is one of the Melbourne scene, a very prolific player, an event runner from Melbourne. But he came down with Ruben from the Bacon Burger podcast, and Hari flew down as well. So you had, 3 folks in from out of town for your event, from way north.
Hari flew all the way down from Mullumbimby to come along to join us. I managed to convince him.
Nice. That's a heck of a trek. But it's a big event. The terrain looks great. It was sponsored through the nose. It was a top tier Bolt Action event, and I can understand why he made that trip down. So that clearly he won the furthest traveled award.
Actually, he took out Best Minor Nation.
Yes, he did, didn't he? So talk to us about what Hari took, because it wasn't your standard old Axis list.
No, he took the wonderful Finnish list of Germans fighting for the Finns.
Yeah, it was very cool. It's something. We don't tend to see a lot of Finn players in the Southern Hemisphere.
Nearly ended up with 3 at the event.
Yeah, right. I saw that. It was astonishing. Hold on. I think we're getting ahead of ourselves. Let's back up a step. Tell us the name of the event. Tell us how many points. When was it? How many games? Talk us through the generalities.
Okay, Brad. The name of the event was Operation Sudlicht, which means South Light, and we're running 1,000 points, 3 games on the day, 2.5 hours to play each round, with a 45-minute lunch break.
Nice.
And we started off with the missions of the wonderful Heartbreak Ridge, the Bolt Action Alliance pack from 2016. And if anyone still wants to hunt that down, that is still living on the Australian Bolt Action page. I've uploaded that mission pack again.
Oh, nice. Thank you for doing that.
Yeah. No, well, can't let those sorts of resources fall out of hands.
That's true.
And then we ran key positions with not rolling for the number of objectives, but forcing everyone to play with 5.
Nice. I like that. Yeah.
And the final round, we played No Man's Land.
Hey, yes.
Just because by the end of the day, everyone's brains are starting to shut down. So
Mm-hmm.
makes it nice and easy when you just have to kill one another.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's cool, man. And that's always been sort of what I've been saying has been sort of the sweet spot for bolt action events is 2 objective grabs and a kill point mission. And so, yeah, that's fantastic. So you had 26 players signed up prior to the event, but then you shifted to 24. 2 dropped out. You didn't shift, I should say. Yes. But you had an amazing spread of countries. Now, I have it in front of me, or did you want to talk about that before I listed them out?
Yeah, no problem at all. Well, because we generally run all of our events as an Axis versus Allies event, we try to avoid blue and blue.
Yeah.
The next thing that I try to do for matchups is go for as historical as possible for round 1.
Nice.
And then I try to make players who have played one another at one of our previous events not play one another again.
Oh, that's cool. Nice.
So we've had one bloke that's turned up now for 3 of our events and has played 9 different opponents.
That's awesome, man. Because, there is that thing where you often end up, the person you traveled the farthest with is the person you end up playing in round 2. Yeah.
It used to happen a lot in the old 40K days. You'd travel all the way to Hobart and play the 3 guys that live around the corner from you.
Yep.
And you're like, yeah, could have done that in the shed.
Exactly.
And saved the 600-kilometre round trip.
Oh, I always forget how big Tasmania is.
Picture the size of Ireland for anyone that's in Europe.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or, God, I don't even know what that is in North American terms. It's big. Yeah. All right, well, let's talk Axis. So you had, 2 for 12 Axis players.
We had a break split down the middle.
Oh,
exactly
that's
12 of each.
Now, did you have anyone who was sort of on the cusp either way and sort of would shift to buy bust, or was that just natural?
That was naturally turned up that way.
That's awesome.
Mainly we fudged the numbers a bit with our local players all having a couple of armies. So once the slots were filled up, it was first in, best dressed. And then if I required more Axis or Allied, I'd just be calling up the last people that had entered their lists. No, you're now playing Allied.
Exactly. There you go.
Go dig your Allied army out. So
nice. Well, looking at your number spread, we had 2 Japanese, 2 Finns, 8 Germans, which I guess isn't that surprising since Germany's very popular, but the spread within Germany was 1 Fallschirmjäger, 1 Heer, 1 SS, 2 Grenadiers, 1 DAC, 1 Winter Army, and 1 Panzer Brigade 150, my favorite. That's awesome, man. That is such a cool spread of forces.
Yeah, it's very unique. And then the Grenadiers, there was 1 early war, 1 late war.
Very cool.
And the Finnish armies was continuation war, and the other one was Hari's German Finns.
Very, very cool. Now, I have to ask Hari about that, but he was running them as the Finnish rules?
Yes, he was running the Finnish national rules.
Awesome. Oh, that's so cool. And then on the Allied side, you had another fantastic spread. You had 1 Australian, 1 Soviet, which is, unbelievable given how many Soviet players there seem to be sometimes. 1 French, 4 U.S., then that's 1 paratroop, 2 Normandy, and 1 Tunisia, and 5 British, 1 being Tristan's LRDG, 3 Desert Forces, and 1 Western Europe. That's awesome, man. Such a cool spread.
And the Western Desert format for the British, we actually had 2 Commonwealth forces in that, like proper Commonwealth forces. Someone made the 2nd New Zealand Division and done a lot of research on it. And another player had actually made his great-grandfather's division with just the 25-pounders and stuff backing it up.
Oh, man, that is cool when people have those connections to their own forces and they're able to put them on the tabletop.
Yes.
Oh, rad. Now, you got to play a game yourself. There was a buy-busting at one point. So what did you get to play?
I brought out my Tunisian Americans for this buy-buster, but if I'd had known that I was going to be buy-busting, the Norwegians probably would have got their first event run.
I was going to ask, because you are a man who seems to go through bolt action armies at a prolific pace. Now, you have painted the Norwegians, and I'm so glad you brought those up. I do want to ask. I'm going to stay on topic, and then let's go back to that, because I do want to bring. It's on my list of things to talk about. But you had another player come in who played their very first game of bolt action at the event as one of the buy busters, or sort of to replace the buy buster, but in the process got to play for the first time, but also B, with their own army, and with a rare one of that. Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, Michael turned up and just to have a look to see whether or not he could get game in on the day, and we hadn't actually met before. He'd just seen on the Facebook page that we were holding the event, rocked up, and I said, well, you can fill in for the buy. Matched him up with one of the guys that also have an Italian force, so he could run him through the rules. And he played Desert Italians versus British with from Western to Matildas.
Awesome.
Against Elephantino guns and stuff. So it was a nice little matchup, except they ended up playing Valley Table, which was the one with the giant hills and the river in the middle.
Oops. Not exactly desert, but yeah. Nice. All right. Well, cool. Now, we did mention that Hare got Best Minor Nation, and we did mention that Tristan got Best Painted. But am I correct in reading this right that Sean Devonish got Best Allied Player?
Yeah, Sean Devonish was our Best Allied player.
And what was he running?
He was running Operation Cobra US forces.
Oh, nice. So that's sort of the push after the D-Day landings.
Yes, yeah, and he ran it with very minimal support, but was running an M18 Hellcat that may have been showing up some of the pictures. Beautifully painted army as well.
Yeah, man, that was a beautiful force. And so, okay, so that's Best Allied, and Best Axis was pronounced. Correct me if I'm getting this wrong. Riordan Macbeth.
Yep. Yes, Riordan Macbeth.
Nice, what a great name. My Scottish wife approves. And what? Of course, he was playing Axis. So, what did he take?
He was running a Japanese horde of regular infantry.
Oh, I love it. Now, are those just Japanese riflemen?
All Japanese riflemen. I think there was 50 riflemen in his list.
Brilliant.
10-man squads, a couple of Suicide AT guys, and a captured Stuart. And he was based it off the push on Burma.
Yes. Love it. I love a regular Japanese horde list, mainly because that was how I used to run Japanese. But it's a lot of fun, and people always tend to run like super elite vets, or the unwashed horde of inexperienced jungle dwellers. But to see something regular in a Japanese force is cool.
Yeah, some of the other forces that really do deserve a mention was the Soviet force. That was Zhukov takes command. That had a T-26 running around in it.
Nice.
And cavalry. It's got a cavalry, some partisans, and all sorts of bits and pieces where Zhukov pushed back in to defend Moscow. The army, which if anyone looks at the pictures, they might notice it's actually out of the New Guinea book. Because that's the force painted up by the wonderful Brian Cook.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
That was being played by Paul Berwick on the day.
Oh, cool.
And probably they're just the level of painting is just phenomenal.
Yeah, the pictures that you shared from the event were astonishing. I mean, just the level of quality of the models of that event looked phenomenal, especially given they were taken on the pictures of, your terrain. They were taken with your terrain as the backdrop. And I know that it does sound a little bit like I'm blowing sunshine, and I sound really excited, I know, but guys, if you haven't seen pictures of this, you really owe it to yourself to go to, Bolt Action Tasmania, or there is also pictures on Bolt Action Australia, New Zealand, or and I'm going to get it wrong, the Democratic, oh God.
Democratically elected Republic of Players.
Thank you. It's been a long day of work. Because the quality of the terrain was amazing. The armies were amazing, and C, the pictures of the games look great too. So you put it all together, and it's just, if you are a big fan of bolt action, you should definitely take a look at those photos. But yeah, great stuff. Great stuff. Now I understand that big events, sometimes it's hard to make sure that there's enough prizes or enough support, but it sounds like you guys were drowning in it. You guys were supported by all kinds of folks. And some of these names are familiar, but some of them are new to me. Why don't we talk about some of these people that supported you, man? Because there was a lot of sponsors.
Oh, yes. Yes, we're very, very fortunate with that. The name for the train and the pictures have gotten out there. Some people may or may not know that Dad and I and the family did some of the train for the Fortress Budapest book, which is now in the possession of Brian Cook, and that's been dragged out to a couple of the events up in Sydney now, that I understand, and a couple of gaming days.
Yeah. And,
so we had people keen to get on board and support us, which is great, and great for the community.
Hell yeah. So first and foremost, I couldn't help but notice that Ian and John from War and Peace Games were there, loud and proud.
Oh, as they have been stuck with us through thick and thin. They were the first ever sponsor we had for our first ever event, when we had 12 players show up.
That's awesome.
We don't really have a brick and mortar store as such on the northern half of Tasmania, so they're our go-to. And you can always ring them up and go, oh, is there any chance you're getting this in? And they will find it for you. They are fabulous people. And
they're so and I know I always talk about how awesome they are to call up and talk to, but those poor bastards, I call them up and start saying, hey guys, how you going? And they always... They always humor me.
You've got 5 minutes, and 25 minutes later, you're still on the phone to them.
Exactly. It's not like you got a job to do and I'm on break, but they are just the nicest guys, and they know everything about what I'm always calling them out saying, so I'm looking for this bit, or this, I'm looking for this, this product. And as you say, they find it, and they have a huge stock as it is. But they're always knowledgeable and so nice. Love those guys. And they have been so generous with the bolt action community from day dot. It is astonishing.
Oh, their support has created the community what it is.
Amen. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, another big supporter of some of the big local events, at least here, has been, of course, Viv from Knights of Dice. Now, I noticed that he was a big sponsor there as well.
Well, I've had the fortunate time to be over in Melbourne once and popped into West Heidelberg there and checked out his setup, and it is phenomenal.
Yeah. What
he is managing to create out there. If anyone in the Melbourne place, go out and say hi to Viv. He's a great bloke.
Yes.
I sent him a message on Facebook and say, oh, can you make this for me? And 2 days later, he's got a design drawn up and a price for me. It's just brilliant.
Now, he did y'all's trophies as well, didn't he?
Yes, he did. Yes.
So good looking, right? Laser cut acrylic trophies. They were gorgeous.
They're awesome, and he pulled me out of a bit of a spot there, because our normal trophy supplier couldn't do them. And he managed to make those up in 4 days for me.
Oh man, yeah, he makes magic happen, doesn't he?
Oh yeah, especially when you've also got to calculate in postage down to Tassie as well. So
yeah, that's awesome. But he also of course did some terrain prizes, but he also did his new business, which I am keen to talk about with him on a future episode of Cast Dice, which is he's now doing dice bags.
And they are fabulous pieces of kit.
Right? I just recently got my first. I have a lot of dice bags, and these are top tier, right?
They are brilliant. I couldn't help myself. The second he set up his new business and he set up his new page to sell them, I purchased the first 4 that he put on his page just to annoy him, to make him sold out.
Nice.
And and then we gave them away as prizes, and they all went. They are great pieces of kit.
Yeah, they are brilliantly done. They're lined. They're heavy duty. I've been using mine a lot, and it is awesome.
And if you're looking for a generic dice bag for bolt action, and all you need is a patch made up and sewed on the front of it, it's nice and simple. You can make your own custom dice bag very quickly.
Yeah, I'm looking at getting a new dice bag made for my GI Joe Cobra forces, for my bolt action. Yeah, I'm a sad man. Anyway, so I'm getting a custom one of those made up. As soon as I can find the right patch to go with it and the right material, I'm going to be calling Viv and saying, "My man, hook me up," because. Yeah, I definitely need a custom one. I might even get my name done on it. Anyway, brilliant. Now, May 40 Miniatures. Now, I am well familiar with their products, but why don't you tell us about them and some of the stuff they have coming up? Because I know you're really excited.
I am very excited. Sander at May 40 Miniatures sent us over a couple of blisters of his fabulous new Dutch range, and I was lucky enough to get my hands on some of the new master sculpts of the upcoming FJ Kickstarter, which starts on the 2nd of September. And for us that are in the future, that means it has started, but it doesn't actually kick off till tomorrow.
Well, when this goes to air, quote unquote, and I'm not pulling the curtain back at all, tomorrow, it will be live. So, ladies and gentlemen, look for it. So, will it be under Kickstarter, but under May 40? Is that right?
Under May 40 Miniatures, Fallschirmjäger, and it is all 1940 Fallschirmjäger force. We're talking the proper smocks, the correct gear. Awesome. His stretch goals include things like the drop canisters and a Panzerbusch and things like that, all the little bits that if you want to collect a force that is from 1940 to do the invasion of the Netherlands, Belgium, Norway, this is the army to at a pinch. You just need a couple of LG 40s and things like that, and you can do them for Crete as well.
Oh, that's so cool, man. Oh, yeah, definitely check that out, guys, because I know I was waiting for that announcement, and now I don't need to. I'm announcing it here. Thank you very much. There you go, Mr. Draft. Well, let's keep going. Rubicon, of course, also big sponsors of Australian Scene. Now, they got some stuff for you as well, didn't they?
Yes. They are fabulous pieces of kit. We managed to get our hands on the 3 new Panzer IVs, an 88. Nice. With a duck crew, gave away one of their new Nebelwerfers and a Howling Cow.
Very cool.
Some very nice bits of gear. And then, of course, we had even more Rubicon stuff, which we purchased with our prize support because I'm a very big fan of their kits.
Yeah, they're very cool. Now, I'm going to ask you about a couple that I'm afraid I am not familiar with. Leading Edge.
Yeah, Leading Edge are the local-ish hobby store as such. They do a lot of the remote control cars and things like that for us along the coastline. They're based in Burnie. Big supporters of our local scene as far as like silly things that you don't think about, like your hobby tools, your craft knives and things like that. And they jumped on board and we got a heap of in our goodies bag, we gave everyone a little mini 3-foot tape measure because people always forget tape measures.
Oh, yeah, they do.
Yeah, and they came to the party and supplied, gave us a discount on getting those. So.
Nice, very cool. And that's that's one of those great practical bag stuffers that you can add to like a goodie bag that you're giving to players that they're always going to use.
Oh, well, at least you hope that they don't forget one. When you see a couple of people using them, you see how flimsy they are, then you go get the spare tapes out.
Yeah, exactly. But hey, in a pinch, it gets it done. Way back when, in the old 40K days, there was, I think it was Game Master Games in the U.S., in the northeast of the U.S., in the 90s. A friend of mine used to run that, and every time we would go to a grand tournament, he had literally a sack in his tournament supplies that was just miniature tape measures with a store logo on it. And every single time someone was like, "Oh no, I forgot," or "I broke my tape measure," he would just be throwing them around the room. And by the end of the grand tournament, half the room would be using them, and he would just be like, "Man, you would think that tape measure attrition's really bad in this game." Anyway, that or we just leave our tape measures everywhere. But okay, Wolf Biscuit. Never heard of these guys. Who are they?
He is still setting up at the moment. You may have noticed Grey Wolf
yes.
on the are floating around the internet.
Mm-hmm.
He's a good friend of mine from over in New Zealand,
Mm-hmm.
and he's setting up his own dice bag company based over there. And I got some of these sample ones and purchased some of his first ones off him as well. So they are up on the table as well. So if you're in New Zealand, keep your eye out for Wolf Biscuit. They will be starting up soon. He's still got to make a logo and stuff, but he's just getting his feet on the ground.
That's cool, man. I love to see all these little. I don't want to sound little like it's disparaging, but these businesses that are starting up and around the bolt action community. It just speaks volumes about how strong that community is.
And it's more about supporting our little guys as well, because there's a lot of small spin-off businesses, not their day job, like May 40 Miniatures. The guy still has to go to work.
Yep.
He's making models, and really good models.
Yeah.
Wolf Biscuit, for instance, is still doing night shift work as well, but is trying to start doing something to pay for his hobby excesses, as we should call it.
Yeah, we all have a couple of those.
Yeah. So if we can all throw a little bit of dollars here and there to the guys that are just as bad as us at collecting piles of lead, then I'm more than happy to.
Yeah, exactly. Smog's hoard of lead, right? Right on. Well, cool. Well, how, as the TO, how did this event go in your estimation? I've seen the post saying it went really well, but what were some of your thoughts of the event as it ran?
Well, from all the feedback I've received, everybody had a fabulous day, and that's our main aim. Is they are a friendly event. We do have first, second, and third for Axis, Allied, and Minor Nation, but it's more about playing people that you haven't played before, meeting new friends in your community groups, and from outside your community groups, and just having a great day and rolling some dice.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, everyone I've talked to who went, which is Rubes, has said they had a lovely time. I know he had a blast, and he's talking about making the trip next year.
Yeah, I heard Hari's already trying to book himself in to come to the one that we're holding in March.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's keen, man. That's 6 months down, and you'll be ready to go.
Fingers crossed, as long as we don't try to bite off too big a project before we start.
Well, you did a lot of terrain for this event. How many tables of terrain did you guys have to make for this event to happen, full stop?
Have to make or opt to make? That's
the big question, isn't it?
That's the big question. Well, there were 4 tables worth of terrain that were still in the shed that didn't make it to the event.
Oh, you're ready to go then. You've got tons.
Well, that was the silly part, is we thought, oh, yeah, we'll just do some more fences and we'll just do some more of this and just do some more of that. And we had more than enough, as you can see from some of the photos.
Yeah. Well, that's the other thing. I mean, when you have that terrain, it's sometimes tempting to overfill, but it didn't look like you guys had too much terrain, but you also definitely didn't have the common terrain problem, which is not enough.
Yeah, well, I know I spent 3 months making green hills for a Po Valley for someone that was promised that they were going to bring their Gerbesjäger. Talking about you, Mr. Turner.
Yeah,
and
that project.
Discovered that he decided he was going to bring fins at last minute. So then there was a whole terrain table set that's spent after 3 months of being built and stayed at the shed and didn't even get to see the light of day.
Next time, Hari, I think you're being called out, man. I think next time you got to bring it in March.
It'll be his free French, no doubt. He changes armies more than underpants, I think.
He does. He changes armies more than I do, and that's saying something. Oh, goodness. All right. Well, speaking of changing armies, maybe I shouldn't segue quite yet. Is there any other observations? Are you just happy that everyone had a good time yourself, and ready to call it quits for 6 months?
Oh, my main focus when I actually get to host events, my favorite part is actually running around with the SLR camera.
Yeah.
And taking photos of really well painted models that are done by other people in our terrain. And one of the tricks we do at our event is I run around, take photos while turn 1 and 2 are on. and then they go up on the projector, so everyone can actually see the games that are going on around them.
That's cool.
While you're playing, and then the sponsors' logos rotate through that as well during the day.
That's very cool. So yeah, it's just sort of celebrating the whole event and everyone who supported it, hasn't it?
Yes, and we're playing in a gym. Okay, no, you can't smoke. No, you can't drink, but you don't actually touch the other opponent unless you're picking up your chair to swing it at them.
Right? Yeah.
And then you probably still have to take 3 steps to hit them.
Yeah, exactly. So, have a running start and you'll be all set. Yeah. Oh, because that is one of the problems often when you're holding a bigger event, is that all of a sudden, table space is sort of a premium, and sometimes you're getting a little personal with the person on the table behind you. But
the good old one where you sit down, you go to sit in your seat and you see somebody who's put all their debt in their army sitting on it instead.
Mm-hmm. The number of times I've been to CanCon and seen someone sit on those seats with models on them, I can literally count it at least on one hand. And every single time that shiver goes down your spine and you go, don't do that. Look before you sit. It's also why I always keep my models under the table, not anywhere else, because I've seen that too many times.
Another thing that you'll notice with the photos, all of our tabletops that we painted up for the event, because we had to supply all those, of course, they're actually 8 foot by 4 foot tables. So every table had 2 feet of space at the end for you to sit your army up on, put your boxes on, put your books out, roll your dice on. So you weren't trying to fit things in around the terrain at all. It was very, very useful space.
Oh, that's great, man. Yeah, it means that, you definitely can spread out, and you're also not as, the maker of that terrain. You're not shipping that terrain, putting cases down on it, with people rolling dice. I mean, there's plenty of space, as you say.
Yes.
Nice. Nicely done. I like it. Well, I did promise we would come back to this. So you are playing the definition of hard mode at times when you play Bolt Action. It has been talked about many times on Bolt Action podcasts over the years, but the dreaded Norwegian list from the, of course, armies of France and the minor powers is largely touted as and I've heard people say this, the most quote unquote unplayable army in Bolt Action. Which I don't agree with, but I also don't think it's overpowered by any stretch of the imagination.
It's those free skis.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what gets everyone.
Oh, yeah, it's overpowered, man. It's overpowered. At 1 point ski. Oof. So let's talk about that, because you got the models from Gorgon Miniatures, right?
Yes, Gorgon Studios.
Yeah, so good, aren't they?
Oh, they're beautiful sculpts. They're great.
They
travel okay to Australia. I won't say they travel probably as well as your Perry's medals do. You end up with a few bent, but nothing too broken.
Nice. Now, you painted an entire army of these, so you have a full army of Norwegians.
Yes.
And when we say that, of course, for those of you who are not following at home, when you play early war, basically the first week of World War II, quote unquote, in Europe, there's not a lot of vehicles in that army.
No, there isn't, Brad. You've got the options of a civilian car or a civilian truck.
Exactly.
And no, you can't add an MMG to either of them.
No, you can't. So for those of you who are then keeping track at home, that's not exactly a veteran force either. So you're all of a sudden talking about a lot of bare bone rifle infantry.
Yes, a lot of riflemen.
So how many riflemen does that mean you have?
72, I think.
That's awesome, man.
And there's 5 Madsen LMG guns, a medium mortar, and it's got one of the most overpowered howitzers in the game. For 40 points, you get a light howitzer with a special no AT round rule.
Yes.
Which means you get +1 pen whenever you shoot at vehicles, which means, that's right, you can't penetrate a Jeep at long range.
Oh, Yeah. See, that's overpowered right there.
It's broken.
So, easy mode, easy mode. Well, okay. Now, people have often talked about this army at length. I think some of the guys in the UK have talked about it. I think it's the Juggernauts like to talk about. I'm not sure. You have actually played this army.
Yes.
How does it go?
So far, from 4 games, I'm 2 wins, 2 draws.
Doesn't sound bad to me.
And that's against my regular opponent, Les, playing Late War SS.
Again, doesn't sound bad to me. It's one of those things, man. Bolt Action's a platoon infantry game by definition. And yes, there's a million nuances within that. And yes, I acknowledge that Late War has a lot of benefits that Early War doesn't. But basic riflemen in this game aren't bad.
No, especially when you end up taking the whole platoon.
Yeah. Oh man, it puts a smile on my dial that in a way that I cannot describe.
And when you say that you had one platoon, suddenly have a whole platoon of veterans.
Ooh. Oh, I hadn't even thought of doing that. I'm just the constant regular guy. Can you take a full platoon of veteran? You can, can't you?
Yes, they're the Royal Guard.
Yes.
And it's the only way you get access to AT grenades.
Oh, that's right.
So I have 2 squads of Royal Guards to take as my anti-tank choice.
That's awesome. So you can have two squads with anti-tank grenades. Clearly, that's broken.
Yes.
Yep.
11 men.
Yeah, broken. Actually, it is always funny because, the AT grenades are one of those things you don't see all that often in the wild. So all of a sudden when somebody does have one and you forget, oh my God, that hurts. And is that something that you've run into when you're playing with this, that people sort of forget they're there, or do people avoid your 2 Norwegian squads like the plague?
Well, they took out a Stug.
Mm-hmm.
And he wasn't 100% sure on how it worked. And when you're rolling 11 dice and needing 4s because he hasn't moved to get that pen value, and then you're rolling twice on the chart, they start getting a bit nervous. And since then, the last 2 games I've drawn because those squads have died. So he has learned what the trick is.
Of course, you did mention that you were playing the same person all 4 times with that army, and I should have realized that, of course, Les would learn his lesson the first time. So,
yes.
Yes. Yeah, it's one of those things. I always ignored the Piat until I got one in the eye and then went, oh, yeah, I need to. Unfortunately, it appears I am not as smart as Les because I took several Piats before I learned that lesson. But yeah. Piat, terrible reputation, not terrible in the game, just short-ranged. Don't drive your tank next to one. # true story. Anyway, well, Acktar, it has been an absolute pleasure talking with you today, man. I don't want to cut you short, but our time is running because I do want to talk to Rob Lambert up in Townsville. Is there anything else that you wanted to chat about while you were on the show today?
Just get out there and roll dice, meet some people, have fun. The game's for fun.
Amen. I'm with you, brother. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and thank you very much for running an awesome event, man. It's fantastic to hear such a big event happening in Australia and not too far from us. So one of these years...
If you're saying it's not that far, you better come down next year.
Yeah, it's one of these days. I'll have to try.
Oh, what's that? You're coming next year?
I'm not promising anything. I am, however...
Okay.
Yeah,
done.
Oh, darn it, he got me. On that note, though, I think it is time for the almighty segue. So, Acktar, thank you very much for coming on, and I think
very much, Brad.
We will roll on. So, stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be right back. And we are back with an old friend of the show, an old friend of Melbourne Bolt Action. Of course, Robert Lambert has been around forever and is a fellow teacher. It's wonderful to hear his voice. And he is going to be joining us to talk about Bolt Action in a very different place than Melbourne. Rob, welcome to Cast Ice. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good. Thanks, Brad. Good to be on the show. Long time listener, first time caller.
I love it when people say that. Sorry. How you doing, man?
Yeah, good.
Oh man! All right. So as I said, you were an old school Melbourne scene guy. You were sort of in that first big wave of bolt action players that hit Melbourne way back when, and you played in a ton of events. Tell us a little bit about sort of your bolt action journey. I know you played a couple different armies. What's your bolt action passion, man?
Yeah, I got into bolt action a couple of years ago. We met in 2015, and I only play bolt action, so I was really looking for a hobby to get into. And at the time, I was working in Melbourne in the city, and I used to venture down to the GW shop and just check out what they had on there. And had a stack of cash in my wallet one afternoon, and I went down there, and the GW shop was closed, and I ended up making my way to Good Games in Melbourne and found bolt action, and I never looked back, really.
Nice, man. Well, that's one of those things you don't usually hear about people picking up bolt action first. It's usually one of those games that people sort of slide into from another game system or, jump over from GW. So you just kind of cut out the middleman and went straight in.
Yeah. I think it was a Monday, and they were closed on Monday, and that was it. I had to spend my money that day, and I did. I certainly did.
Well, I'm sure Ryan, the manager of that shop, is sad to hear that, as he does listen to the show. Sorry, Ryan.
Yeah.
Right on.
Played a lot of events in Melbourne. I was one of the first of the VBA crew, and I TO'd an event in 2017 called Operation October Watch. It was a sniper-themed event.
That's right.
That was my last event in Melbourne, and I took a job in North Queensland, and we packed up the car and drove north.
Now, you are in Townsville now.
Yeah, Townsville, yeah.
Which is very famous because it is sort of home to one of Australia's largest military installations. And so we have, or sort of that area is known for having a lot of Defence Force / military personnel stationed there. Yeah,
that's right. It's quite a few defence members here, and like most defence establishments, the city is based around that, the spending of the money here and the troops being here, but they're always out and about. And a lot of our players that play through the club are defence members, and they're hard to get a hold of some weekends. So you turn up to a club meet every on a Sunday, and it's just a lucky dip of what gets played on that day. So most people here in Townsville play 3 or 4 systems. Even I had to venture into another system just so I can turn up on the Sunday and have a game to play. So
Dare I ask what other game you picked up?
I got into A Song of Fire and Ice.
Nice.
Song of Ice and Fire, that game from Come On. It's got a Stark army.
That was my next guess, and my next question was which of the thrones or the flags you are behind trying to get the Game of Thrones, or I guess to play the Game of Thrones. So you're playing the Starks, man. Now I've heard tons about this game, but I think you are the first person to ever say those words on this podcast. We will get back to bolt action in a quick sec. But I want, just real quick, what's your hot take about this game? It's a rank and flank game, right? It's a fantasy rank and flank game based on the Game of Thrones books and television show?
Just the books.
Just the books.
Yeah. Well, that's what I've been told. I didn't know there was. I haven't read the books, but when the last season came out on Game of Thrones, it was very strict on the Facebook page not to bring spoilers out and remind everyone that this is a game based on the books. Wow. Hence why it's called A Song of Ice and Fire and not Game of Thrones as well.
Oh, of course.
So, I haven't played any other game system, any tabletop game system, but I have been told that this one resembled 8th edition fantasy, Warhammer. So if you've played that, you've got some idea of how that game was played.
So it's got a rank and flank system where you have big blocks of troops, and the bigger the block, that can give you a bigger advantage, but it also makes you sort of unwieldy. That's
right, yeah, and using trays and movement trays and things like that, yeah.
Now, unlike that game, though, this game has a unique mechanic that everyone keeps telling me about and saying how good it is, and it's got, instead of magic, it's got politics. And your characters do things on and off the battlefield that have real impact on the battlefield itself. So it's almost like you're playing out the political intrigue while you're playing your war game.
Yeah, that's right. the side game, we have your non-playing characters take over a board, and each one of those sort of zones have a influence on the game, whether political or movement and that sort of thing. So,
Nice.
not being a card, I've never played a game with cards. So you've got you're rolling the dice, and you've got your measuring stick and your measuring movements.
Mm-hmm.
Then you've got your tactic cards in your hand, which I forget because I've never played a game with cards. And then you've got your side game with your non-playing characters or your non-playing units, which adds a whole nother level to the game. So it is pretty cool. Yeah.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. All right. Well, what are some of the other games that people are playing up there? I'm assuming that the Games Workshop games would be present and accounted for. I know several service members, people in the Army who played very competitively in the Melbourne scene for years of Warhammer 40K that went up there and have come back. So I know the 40K's played up there.
Yeah, 40K, Warhammer. Then there's Infinity. There was a big Infinity tournament last weekend. A Song of Ice and Fire was pretty big about 12 months ago when it sort of first got released. But there's guys just rock up with board games as well. Russ, one of the long-term members of the club, plays a game called U-Boat, which is 4 guys sort of command a U-Boat with an iPad attachment, which gives you that real-life sort of shooting effect. So that's a game that's been thrown around a bit. And then just the usual ones. Malafax was around for a little bit. Haven't seen that for a couple of months. Bold Action's popped its head up again recently. There's a couple of players who've just got into Bold Action, so they're really keen to play on a Sunday. So it's just all sorts of stuff. It's just quite amazing. You turn up on a Sunday and there's just games get played all the time. Yeah.
Nice. Well, that sort of brings us full circle and back to why you are here. We are going to talk about your upcoming event. Now, it's happening on October 20th, 2019, in Townsville, and it is called Operation Northern Exposure. Now, this is sort of the first event that you're running up there, this is sort of a continuation of a series of bolt action events that have happened sort of semi-annually over the years?
Yeah, that's right. They try to put the Townsville Gamer Club try to put on an annual event for each of the systems that most people play. So every year there's a bold action tournament, and there's also an Infinity tournament, a Warhammer tournament, and they just pick those systems up. And then I've taken over the reins from the bold action one, coming back to Townsville with a little bit of experience in bold action events and some being my thing, I guess, with tabletop gaming. I was happy to put my hand up.
Nice. Well, cool. Now, you, of course, have run, as you said, the sniper event in Melbourne years ago. This is a more straightforward event, right? This is just sort of the excuse to get people to pull their bolt action armies out of the cupboards and get, gaming on the table, right?
Yeah, that's it. I just try to name it Operation Northern Exposure, just to expose the game amongst the community. I've got some guys coming down from Cairns to play, so that's that's a 350-kilometre drive down to play. I've got on board the local gaming shop, and they're putting up the space for the day and a barbecue for the event. So they've got some bold action stuff in the store, just trying to get people back into the game, dust off any old armies. I've got plenty of armies that we can share. Any new players want to come in and play. But also just I've got Adam from Dice at War, Nick from Eureka Miniatures, and John and Enid sent a little nice little support package up for me, just so that there's so many other bold action options. You don't need to buy from Warlord. You can go to a local shop. You can online purchase from War and Peace. You can go and see Dice at War online, and just these are things you can get involved in. If you there's so many things that I was exposed to in Melbourne. Viv has offered a few prize vouchers from Knights of Dice as well. So these things are out there. I know within Australia postage is not too bad, but there are these online retailers in Australia that you can jump on their page, grab a few things, and it ships up in a few days. Yeah. Just to expose this game, because it is a good tabletop game.
Oh, it's a great game. Bolt Action is such a great tabletop game to play with other people. It works as a narrative game. It works as a competitive game. It works, just for funsies. It really does work at a ton of levels, which a lot of game systems just don't do. And I know that, you can nitpick certain mechanics about, maybe this isn't, quote, fair, or maybe I don't like this particular rule from this edition. But as a whole, the Bolt Action rule set is pretty damn special.
No, it is, and that's why we're doing that generic platoon, because we don't want people to get back into the game. We don't want to get stomped on by some theatre list, some Russian theatre list. So it's nice and easy coming in. Because a lot of the gamers here play amongst themselves, we don't get a lot of outsiders come in. We almost have developed a set of house rules with ball action, and we're just trying to say, remember, let's go back to the book and just play this game how it's supposed to be played, and just enjoy it. Get together, roll some dice, have a barbecue, and just get that gaming community back as one in Townsville. So we're looking forward to it.
Nice. Now, as you said off air, it is 1,000 points, right?
Yeah, 1,000 points, single. So it's 1,000 points, generic platoon. Happy for people to bring in, multiple platoons.
Okay,
and I haven't got to order a dice cap. I just want people to, because part of the game I love about the game is writing the list. And I know that earlier in the time when you were playing ball action, Bray used to stay up and write list after list after list.
Yeah, I haven't done that in a long time.
Yeah, but to me, I don't mind doing that. And I had a game on Sunday with a friend of mine, just a casual game, as I was telling you about, and I got absolutely smashed. And Sunday night, I've got the list, I got out the Easy Army, and I was just going through my list and just tinkering it with a bit. So I want people to explore the list. I want people to do 2 platoons if needed.
Right.
But, we check in those lists to make sure it's fair and within a fair play and gamemanship. But
Right.
Yeah, go for it. See what you can come up with within a platoon, a generic platoon.
Nice. Right on. Well, cool. Now, you did say there would be a barbecue, and you did say that there would be cool beverages. So if people want to sign up for this, and this sounds, absolutely, this is the kind of event I'd love to go to, and I just wish you were closer, or I guess I was closer to you for this.
Yeah.
Says the guy who lives in a place where there's lots of events. This does sound like my kind of event. Now, if people are wanting to find out more information about this, how can they find out more?
Just up doing the play pack up now. I'm just trying to look at the barbecue costs and borrowing some terrain. But it has been posted on the Bold Action Facebook page, Australian New Zealand Bold Action Facebook page. You just want to make a comment on the post, and I'll be able to get back to you, or just message me through the Bold Action Facebook page, just through that post, and we'll get in contact. It is up on also the Bold Action Townsville page. If you do live in the North Queensland area, jump on the Bold Action Townsville page. There's a community of players there that jump on there and talk and organise casual games. Or just keep an eye out. Regular posts will come up. Nice. I've got a few packages. So I've got a package from John and Ian at War and Peace. I'm spruik there. War and Peace a bit online tomorrow. Let everyone know that it's just magnificent, the prize support and the community around the bowl action scene. Viv Night and Day did the same thing. He's sending down some vouchers, and just amazing that the people in the community just put their hand up, give us a chop out, and just make these events so much better.
Well, if I can quickly talk about John and Ian, I mean, you guys have heard me talk about these guys in the past. Clearly, it sounds like I'm in their pocket or vice versa. But, I mean, I really cannot talk about how great a service they do for the bolt action community here in Australia. I mean, just in this episode, we're going to be talking, of course, to you. But, recently we had major event, 24 players, 26 players in Tasmania. Amazing turnout. We had War and Peace Games sent a lot of prizes down for that. We had Operation Bear in Melbourne recently. They sent a lot of prizes for that. This is a Sydney-based company, and they are sending out prizes to all the bolt action events, helping to grow that scene, making sure that there are cool prizes for people who come play. It's incredibly generous. They don't have to do it. War and Peace Games, look them up online. They are awesome. Give them a call. I talk to them all the time. John and Ian are probably sick of my voice. But I just recently bought some War Cry cards from them and some Skaven Endless Spells because I needed those things. And, I could go to a brick and mortar for them, but I also wanted to support the guys who have supported us in the past. So I was like, yep, this isn't bolt action, but I'm still going to buy it from them. And, as you said, they sent it out right away. I got it within a couple days. I made the mistake of ordering late in a day, but 2 days later it showed up. Amazing, and that's the kind of love that you can expect from War and Peace. And again, massive, just such a boon to our community that it doesn't hurt to show them a little love back sometimes.
Oh, I absolutely agree. John was my first game I played against that I won in NCO November in 2015.
Mm-hmm.
I was playing an event with ANF at the time, and I played John, and it was the first game I won. And I did remember ringing him last year or speaking to him last year, going, "Remember me? You're the first person I beat in bold action." He goes, "Yes, I do."
And I'm sure he went, "Thanks for that."
Yeah. No, but they get out and play too, and it's just it's huge. It is big, and that's what draws you to the bold action crowd. I always thought I'd never get more than one army. I had my DAC army when I first started, and I went to an event. I won a M4 Sherman. Went, that's the start of the next army. And
yes, it is.
Another event, and next thing you know, I've got 6 armies. I don't know how that happened.
Yeah, I know. I definitely know that feeling. I'm actually trying to get down to 6 armies. I took a left turn somewhere and ended up in way too many figure cases and went, I think it's time to dial this back a little. But man, it's such a great game for that, though, isn't it? Because though that whole inexperienced regular and veteran-y aspect of the game is very samey, and a lot of the armies, you can pick up an army and play. Most armies, because of the way the national rules work and the units are very similar between armies, a lot of people have said it's very samey, but there is that variety, isn't there? And so all of a sudden you're like, it is very similar, but it's very different. And then all of a sudden you got to have that next army, don't you?
Yeah, I played 60 event games, and I've never played the same list twice.
Yeah.
Apart from the army that you play on an event, but I've every time I've turned up, you can change it just a little bit, just tinker with it, add a new unit, take a unit away, put a new vehicle in, and it just changes the entire game. And every time you play and roll dice with a friend or a mate, you're something new on the table. And,
exactly.
And that just brings it an element to the game every time you play.
Yeah, and it's something that I've been playing with recently is, I really tried to get away from, list writing in recent years and just sort of showing up and pulling armies, pulling literally figures out of a case and going, okay, I'll take that. And, trying out different units. But something that has, and I know it's really obvious, but it took me actually some practice to actually sit down and to do this thing, is to actually take an army I already have and play it using a different veterancy. I for years and years and years, I played regular everything. All my armies were based around the idea of regular. And then, I played a couple games with inexperienced armies or mixed veterancy, and then I played a veteran army, and oh my God, did it feel different. But literally the same models. It's like the same models get repurposed and have a totally different feel, right?
Yeah. I've got 1,000-point inexperienced US Army that doesn't see the table very often. Has an M3 Lee and about 70 miniatures, all inexperienced American. And every now and again, I want to do something different against my mates' late war Brit paratroopers. Pull them out and just remind myself, I could probably go regular again.
Exactly. But you could literally put that army on the tabletop and say it's regular, and you would just have less dudes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And again, it would be, as you say, a different experience for you, and I'm sure it would be for him too. Well, Rob, man, it has been a pleasure having you on. Let's remind folks of where they can find this event again. So this is, of course, Operation Northern Exposure 2019. And if you go to the Bolt Action Australia New Zealand Facebook page and you type in Operation Northern Exposure 2019 or Robert Lambert, Lambert, you will find the post about this event, right?
That's it. Yeah, jump on there and search it up, add a few comments, and then in the next few days you'll start seeing a player pack, start seeing some more spruiking about some of the prize support we've got.
Nice.
And just get involved in the conversation. And even those people from North Queensland, jump on the Bold Action Townsville page as well. And there's a few of us that play. Just trying to build up that community again up here in the north.
Awesome, man. And as again, that is October 20th of this year, 2019. And that's at Realms of Magic and Miniatures in Townsville.
That's it.
Right on. Well, thanks again man, we'll have to have you back on and talk about how it went after the event. But, man, it has been a pleasure having you on. Please come back again. And good luck, brother.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate everything you've done, mate. Thank you.
No worries, man. And thank you guys for listening. This has been another episode of Cast Dice. Now, you may have noticed, a few people have, that all of a sudden these podcasts aren't just on podcatchers anymore. They're not just showing up in iTunes. They are now also showing up on YouTube. As of last week, Cast Dice has officially kicked off its YouTube channel. Now, I'm starting that out. When I started podcasting all those years ago, those who remember the good old days of the LRDG will remember just how terrible the good old days were as far as sound quality and volume. And, I mean, it was bad. And as much as a learning curve has been for podcasting, I'm definitely not saying this is perfect, but the quality has improved over time. Now, I'm hoping the quality of the YouTube channel will start significantly better than the podcasting initial endeavors were. However, I am hoping that I will be posting some short videos soon, maybe a few product reviews, heaven forbid, and cringe, perhaps an unboxing. As much as I cringe, don't like watching those myself, I will be doing some army showcases for both my bolt action armies, Star Wars Legion, my G.I. Joe projects. I will be putting army, I guess showcases is the best word for it, just so people can see the projects that I've been working on and that I've been talking about on this podcast forever. Most of those will be coming in the next month or so when I have time over the next school holiday. And in around that time, I'm also hoping to start gameplay videos. I do have a good friend of the show, Jermaine's going to be coming on, and he will be showing us Warcry. I know there's a few other games in the wings. And yeah, any feedback that you have about those videos as they exist now, or videos that are coming up, I would love your feedback. If you would like to leave feedback, as always, if you also want to leave feedback about the show, please leave it by going to Facebook and searching up Cast Dice, CASTDICE. Message the page. My name is Brad. Hi, I'm the only one who will be answering. I would love to hear from you. Anyway, that's enough of that awkward ramble. Ladies and gentlemen, when you are playing the games that we know and love, I hope that your dice roll hot. I hope your beverages are cold. But more than anything else, I hope you're having fun. This is Cast Dice saying good night.